the lowest of the lows. So then that was pure hell. So
Can I ask one? When you took over as CEO, this is a piece that a lot of people I don't think I've ever seen documented. Where was product development exactly? Like, how far along was the product in the making when you took it over? Because I think a lot of misconceptions. People have this idea that you showed up to a done product.
no, I oversaw the product from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I mentioned earlier, my role was effectively like chief product officer. The thing that gets confusing is that normally someone who's chief product officer is not an investor. So people get confused, like, which one are you? It's like, I'm both. And the money was the investment was the least important part. It's just that I believe in putting your own capital at stake if you're going to start a company. Like whatever the opposite of other people's money is, I think is the morally right thing to do. So, like if you're not prepared to invest your money, then why should you ask others to invest theirs? It's not right.
Great.
That's why I invest. For my first company, Zip2, I had no money, so I could not invest in Zip2. That's why. No, like starting Zip2, which is like when I put grad studies at Stanford on hold in '95. I had $100,000 in student debt, and because I didn't start the Stanford quarter, that means that I didn't have access to student housing. I lost my student stipend. I mean, and I had like $2,000. So, and more than $100,000 in student debt, and one computer. So, and that summer of '95, I wrote the first maps and directions and white pages and yellow pages ever on the internet.
Yep.
Personally, by myself.
It's insane.
Yes, it's insane.
95.
And they were like, well, what web server do you use? I don't use web server. I just read the ports directly. I don't have time to move data between one processor and another. I just read the port directly. Why do you need a server? Street port 8080. Problem solved. Anyway, but I didn't have any money. So when my brother came down, he had like $5,000. So that was like a gigantic improvement. Back in the Zip2 days, we found like a sort of an attic sort of office where there was like a hole in the roof and water like piled on the floor and the rug was all stained. But I figured it doesn't rain that often in California, so we got like a discount rug from the nearby rug store, and then got like 2 futons, and then we'd just like sleep in the office and then remake it so it looked official during the day. At one point, we still only had one computer, so like the website wouldn't work at night because I was coding at night, and the web server would run during the day. And the way we got internet access was there was an ISP on the floor below, so I just ran an Ethernet cable through the ceiling, drilled a hole in the floor, ran it through the ceiling tiles, and plugged it into the ISP below.
They never knew.
No, they did know.
They did know? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
but there's like, we'll give you a real cheap rate if you can just plug in directly. So I didn't get like a permit or anything. You know, I just drilled a hole in the floor and took the cable down and plugged it right in. So it was like, okay, we don't need to buy a T1 or router or anything from Cisco. Then when my brother came down, we managed to get a second computer. So then it could be like, okay, this one can run and I can code on the other one. So this is like, that was, we didn't even have an apartment. We just would basically go shower at the YMCA on Page Mill, El Camino, which was like, pretty easy to walk to. So just to give you a sense of like how little money we had in the beginning. It was like nothing. And eat at the Jack in the Box, if you know the Jack in the Box.
Yeah, but one thing I wanted to clear up was, how did the journey of all of the founders like kind of taper? So obviously Everhard was fired.
Yeah.
What happened with JB and all the rest? Like, how was like their journey and kind of their role even towards?
So, I mean, I think it's like it'd be accurate to say that there were like 5 co-founders of Tesla. And even though I despise Martin Everhard, he obviously would be one of those 5. And Ian Wright should also be considered one of the five. Like essentially, like who was there, you know, when the company basically had nothing, which was nothing, and that's the five people. Now the people that were like essential at the end of the day were JB and me. So there would not be a successful Tesla otherwise. It would never even have gone into production. And I think the evidence for this would be like, hey, we fired Martin and gave him a bunch of money. Great, start a car company. He did. He did try. It did not succeed. Yeah. So if you're so awesome, why did it succeed?
Yeah.
And why did nobody leave with him?
Yeah.
If somebody's awesome, so they leave, good people leave with them every time. Not one person left.
That's a tell right there.
Yes.
All of us have left companies and had team members follow us along. So if you can't do that as chief executive when everyone knew you, that's not a good sign for what you did there.
Yes. You're trying to figure out the truth of something. Who followed? Did no one follow? Okay. If he's the good guy and I'm the bad guy, why they'll stay with me?
Yeah.
They
It's
wouldn't.
very clear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a top-notch engineer in Silicon Valley has like 17 job offers. They can work anywhere.
Yep.
So if they don't respect the person they're working for, they're going to work somewhere else. And frankly, people could have gotten way more money than Tesla was offering, you know, and with less risk. So it's like, okay, so they could go work at, I don't know, Apple or something, and make more money with less risk, and they didn't. And Tesla today and SpaceX are rated the top places to go by graduating engineers.
Yep.
Why is that?
Yeah, it's very clear.
Yeah. So, yeah, so like just to be crisp about the timeline, the company and the people that deserve credit for the concept of an electric sports car are AC Propulsion
Yeah.
and the T0.
Yeah.
So they deserve a lot of credit. Eberhard also will never mention them. So this is also a bad sign. It's like it's like it came from whole cloth in his mind. I'm like, no. The T0 from AC Propulsion, Tom Gage and Al Ciccone made an electric sports car. Then you took their idea and said, let's commercialize it. Yes, agreed. And independently, I also thought, let's commercialize it. And allegedly, there was some other team that also had the idea, let's commercialize the T0. Because AC Propulsion was not willing to do it themselves. So, but from the beginning, I oversaw the product development. In fact, Eberhard blames me for a bunch of the issues with the car, saying, oh, like the reason it was expensive was because Elon insisted on all these things about the car. It's like, okay, so if I was controlling the minutiae of the product design, but I also had nothing to do with it, which one is it? I can't be both. I can't be blamed for micromanaging the design of the car, but also have nothing to do with it. One of the two, these are incompatible.
Yep.
So I agonized over every inch of that car. I mean, the Pasadena School of Design gave me an honorary degree in because of my work on the Roadster. So that's how much I had to do with it, a lot.
Yeah.
But the issues, the problems with production. I actually wrote a piece. I don't know if you like it's out there somewhere. Early history of Tesla, like a blog piece. I don't know if you've seen it.
It's been a while.
I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, you can probably, you know, dredge it up from the Wayback Machine or something like that. It's like the early history of Tesla, because I was trying to explain like just in detail how messed up things were.
Yeah.
So like the core product design for the car itself was, I think, you know, compelling, but the business decisions around how to make it were which Eberhard made were terrible. Among the many decisions that were insane were outsourcing battery production to a barbecue factory in Thailand. Yes. So I'm sure they make great barbecues. They didn't know how to make an advanced lithium-ion battery pack.
Oh my goodness.
Found a factory though.
But hey, it's factory. Yes.
Are we even sure if it was real, right? It's just
Literally. Yeah. So like the cells would be made in Japan, then be shipped to Thailand, then be put into a battery pack, then go on a boat again to England to be put into a car, and then that car would then go on a boat again to California, which is the initial market. And so it was like this ended up being like a 5 or 6 month long supply chain. So if there was any problem with the cells of the pack, you'd have basically half a year's worth of inventory that you'd have to write off, and cars that didn't work, which is basically what happened. So the barbecue company in Thailand was just utterly unable to make a battery pack. They'd never done anything like it before. So much drama. Martin did not want to change the motor size or power electronic size from the AC propulsion design, which then therefore required having a 2-speed transmission. There were 3 attempts to make a 2-speed transmission. They all failed, and I think on the order of $10 million was spent just trying to make a two-speed transmission. After we fired Martin, I said we're just going to make the motor bigger and the power electronics bigger and get rid of the 2-speed and just have direct, no transmission, just a direct drive. Need differential and an RPM reducer basically, but you no longer have to have a clutch. So we just made the motor bigger, power electronics bigger, got rid of the transmission. So then now no transmission in the normal sense of the word. When we for the very first cars that went into production, they still had that crappy 2-speed transmission. It was just stuck in first gear, so it had like top speed of like 65 miles an hour or something like that, and with some chance of seizing. So, the body panels have been outsourced to a company that was completely unable to make carbon fiber body panels, and when I visited Lotus, I asked for their top 10 risks. They said, "Oh, your body panel supplier is going to fail." I'm like, "Excuse me?" And this was like a Friday. I'm like, "Well, let's go there right now." It's like Friday night. So we went to the body panel thing, and just like the tools were just the wrong. They were all wrong. They didn't fit. Like any given body panel had to be basically hand massaged, so like make it in the tool, and then it'd be wrong. The tool was wrong, and the process was wrong. So then you had to basically handcraft each body panel in order to make it vaguely fit. And even after that, the body panel gaps were so bad with the trunk that you could literally fit your thumb between in the gap. It was like messed up beyond belief. And I was like, wow, okay, these guys have a 0% chance of succeeding. Mm-hmm. So then we had to transfer the body panel production to this company, Sortera, in France. So then I ended up camping out in France for a few months there, just building new tools for the body. We had to retool the whole body. So Sortera was capable of making the body, but you still needed to retool the thing, so we had to retool the entire car body. So let's see. We changed the car body. The battery pack was I shifted production of the battery pack to Menlo Park, or basically to the Bay Area, technically St. Carlos, I think at the time, and switched final assembly to the car dealership on El Camino, the Ford car dealership. If you watch Revenge of the Electric Car, you can see some of these scenes. So instead of having Lotus, so we'd make the battery pack, in San Carlos, and then and also make the motor and power electronics. So I shipped basically I insourced production of the battery pack, the motor, and the electronics internal to Tesla, so we could iterate quickly and actually figure out a design that worked. So like because design has to be safe, reliable, and not cost crazy money, or it doesn't matter. So yeah, so car body, motor, power electronics, transmission to a single speed. Almost everything got changed in the car. So we had to recapitalize the company, and it took about 2 years before we could actually be in real production, like from mid 2007 to mid 2009.
What was the original vision of the Roadster, though? I mean, you obviously had some production issues, but you had an initial vision once you conceived it. I mean, I know, retrospectively, you said that was a mistake to use the Roadster body because there were so many compromises that were.
Well, the Elise, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Tesla was created with two false assumptions. One false assumption was that you could use the AC propulsion drivetrain technology, and that you could take a Lotus Elise and easily modify that to have an electric powertrain. So essentially, stuff the AC propulsion drivetrain into an Elise, have Lotus do the production, outsource everything. I think Martin thought the peak number of employees would be 35, like literally.
Wow.
Which this all sounds great, especially coming at it from like a mostly software background of me at the time. I'm like, great, sounds good, Unfortunately, neither of those panned out. The AC propulsion technology was not viable in a production vehicle, and they used for example, analog power electronics. So like depending upon what temperature it was, the car would either work or not work. Or certainly work very differently. So we designed our own digital power electronics, and so the car would be consistent in how it performed. And we ended up not using the AC propulsion motor design. We changed the motor design. We ended up not using any AC propulsion technology at all. So in that side of things, and then the problem with the Elise is that once you add a big battery pack to a car, the mass of the car is now like 40% heavier than an Elise. So you invalidate the entire structural design of the Elise. The battery pack wouldn't fit, so we had to stretch the chassis. The mass distribution is completely different. Like I said, all crash tests are invalidated. All the structural design is invalidated. You're essentially redesigning everything, but are still left with the constraints of an Elise, which is that it's a little too small. So that's an issue. You couldn't even use the air conditioning system because air conditioning was belt driven, so we needed an electric air conditioning system. So we couldn't even use that. So in the end, the car was I think the car had maybe 4% or 5% of the parts in common with an Elise.
It's nothing.
Basically, it was worse than if we'd started from a clean sheet.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like if you say like you have a particular home in mind, but instead of building that home on a fresh piece of ground, you take somebody else's home
And stick what you want in it.
and then you knock down everything except one wall and the basement. And so you have the footprint and one wall, and so you have to have like that sort of, and then you try to build your dream home but with somebody else's foundation. It's like not a good idea, and more expensive than if you just did a clean sheet.
Yep.
So that was an issue.
Did you ever consider midway through it dropping the body entirely, or was it just the capital sunk in already? Too late of an option.
What do you mean by dropping the body?
I mean, not using the Elise at all. And
Uh, yeah, I was like, at one point I told JV, I said, I think we should not work with Lotus, and we should build this directly.
Mm.
And JV was like, well, we had no clue how to build a car. It's like we just came out of this from, how do you build a car? No idea, had to learn. So in theory, it's a car company that's been around for like 50 years. It should have a lot of expertise, more so than someone who's never built a car. Um, so yeah. Um, but um, because Lotus would have periodic financial difficulties, when they would have financial difficulties, they would then turn the screws on Tesla. So, because if you're at Lotus and you have a choice of, let's go raise money or let's extract money from Tesla, or they will extract money from Tesla. So they extracted a lot of money from Tesla, and we didn't have any choice. It was not possible to actually. We had no optionality. We're stuck. The only way to make the car was with Lotus. So when they increased the price on us, there was nothing we could do. But anyway, after all that, we managed to get the cost of the car down from where it was previously headed of 180,000 to, I think, around 80,000 by roughly mid 2009. But by redesigning and redoing basically the entire supply chain, with very few exceptions. It was like insanely hard to get the cost of the car below the price, and then we increased the price of the car, and I think we had like an average selling price of around maybe 110, 120. So we're able to get to like 25% margins, but with great difficulty, like hellishly difficult.
No one can say Teslas aren't appreciating assets. The Roadsters are still going for more than that today. So
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Still quite a collection of original Roadsters out there.
I was lucky enough to get my hands on 523.
Okay.
Yeah, beautiful. The electric blue, the one you guys repainted for the owner, because yeah, you told me the story about that. I guess he backed into a parking lot somewhere, and somebody hit him, and you guys repainted it for him. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we had some pretty wild colors in the beginning, because the cars were just being made like one at a time, so it was you could make them be all kinds of interesting colors. We had a pretty vibrant orange color at one point. So, but like the production was excruciatingly difficult in the beginning. From the first set of tooling, from that company that went bankrupt, that was completely unable to make car bodies, we were able to extract 5 car bodies, and each of those car bodies required extensive hand modification in order to and still look like trash, basically, with giant body gaps and stuff. But there was only 5, literally 5.
Yeah.
So the first 5 production Roadsters have the body from the old tooling, and then we're able to transition to the Sortira. It's SOT-IRA, French company. Switch to bodies made with their tooling. And they did a great job, actually. But I remember having to talk the production team there into working a lot more than they would usually work. I mean, not that they're like they have a good work ethic, but they're like, I was like, can you guys please not go on vacation, because otherwise our company's going to die. Essentially, was my speech in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And they were actually like, okay, we'll stay and we'll make the car bodies. They were kind enough to actually postpone their vacations and stuff, and put in some serious hours to make the car bodies for Tesla at Sortira.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So, and this guy Tim Watkins deserves a lot of credit as well. Tim Watkins was essential to making that work.
JB's role was critical. He made it so that the batteries didn't catch on fire anymore, right?
Yeah, JB was like, uh, I mean, JB, Andrew Baclino, um, I mean, there were a number of really top-notch people there that solved the problem. I mean, it's not that the batteries wouldn't catch on fire, it's just that if a cell caught on fire, that it would not go into thermal runaway and domino the other cells.
Mm.
So the I mean, in order for that to happen, we had to have liquid cooling to keep the cell temperatures even. And then you've got a tough problem where you want something to be thermally conductive but electrically isolated.
Mm.
So, these things normally go together. If something is thermally conductive, it is electrically conductive as well. So, try to find some material to still cool or heat the batteries, the cells, but not create a short. It was quite difficult. And then the early packs for the Roadster were we did not scale up we did not have away the cooling tube, so we just had a straight cooling tube, so that there wasn't much contact between the cells and the cooling tube. Anyway, we made it work basically without too much drama, but it required a lot of iteration and making the battery packs ourselves in the Bay Area.
The most expensive place to build a car. I feel like
a
on the
very
planet.
expensive place to build a car, but actually cheaper than if it's outsourced to a barbecue company in Thailand, because it actually works. So our initial designs for the pack were extremely wrong, because it also has to be okay, in an accident. So it can't just it's going to be robust to an accident as well. So
During any point of those early days, like, was obviously bankruptcy was kind of almost knocking at the door. Was there?
bankruptcy actually technically was knocking at the door in like 2008, but not before then.
Okay.
Because I had like money from PayPal. It's just when I started running out of money from PayPal and the markets went into a recession, that's when bankruptcy was knocking at the door. So it was more like in 2008.
Okay.
From 2008 through 2012, bankruptcy was knocking at the door
Okay.
frequently. Just standing out there looking.
Hopefully, it wasn't a
still
specific
here.
person.
Still here.
But
Bankruptcy's still there.
did it cross your mind at any point to just say this is a bad idea? I just need to, I don't know, focus on SpaceX or something else during those even 4 years?
Yeah, I had it. I mean, one of the toughest decisions I ever had to make was in 2008. I think I had like $40 million left or something from the PayPal sale, and I could have. It's like, okay, I can put it all on SpaceX or all on Tesla, and increase probability either one would survive, or I could split it, and then it's like, but to me the company's like kids, it's like it's not like just a company to me. So it's sort of like if you got two kids, like how could you really say, okay, we're gonna let one kid starve, So I was like, I couldn't bring myself to say I'm gonna, definitely that company's gonna die, or definitely that company's gonna die. So I ended up splitting the money, and gave the $20 million to Tesla and $20 million to SpaceX. But that could have ended up being a super dumb decision, and both companies could have gone bankrupt as a result. So at the time, I was like, man, this would really suck if both companies go bankrupt, because I kind of split the meal,
Yep.
But then, fortunately, the fourth launch of SpaceX reached orbit, and if that fourth launch had failed, SpaceX would be dead for sure. And then we closed the Tesla financing round on the last hour of the last day that it was possible, which was 6 p.m. December 24th, 2008.
Crazy.
Crazy. And the only people who would invest were a subset of the existing investors in Tesla. So, you know, so that was, you know, and yeah, it was like Antonio Gracias, Aaron Price, Steve Jobs, and I think there might have been a few others, but those are the three main ones. And then Vantage Point, who is the worst venture capitalist on the face of this earth, and Alan Salzman, who's a second only to Martin Eberhard in douchebaggery. He actually wanted Tesla to go bankrupt so he could recap the company, and literally that was his strategy. What a douche. Anyway, they refused to allow an equity. Like we tried to do an equity round, they blocked the equity round. So then the only way to get because Salzman and Vantage Point, little known fact, wanted to deliberately try to bankrupt Tesla in December of 2008, with their nefarious plan being it would go bankrupt, then they would zero out the equity and recap the company and own the whole thing.
Pennies on the
It's
dollar.
pretty evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, but evil, but also dumb. Because like once a car company goes bankrupt, you lose confidence with the customers.
Yeah.
And like people are like, well, this company went bankrupt, and the suppliers are like, this company went bankrupt. I don't want to supply you parts.
Yeah.
So their nefarious plot would have failed. But anyway, so but the good investors agreed to match the my 20 million. So then Tesla would have $40 million. So that's but because it could not be an equity round, it had to be a debt convertible to equity round because Vantage Point had blocking rights on the equity.
Yeah.
This is like some, you know, deep lore, basically. And that actually was very difficult for the venture investors because the terms of their investment was like they were not debt investors; they're equity investors. So they had to actually go to their partners to get an exception for Tesla to say this is debt convertible to equity, and it only is convertible to equity if at some point in the future Vantage Point agrees that to allow it.
It's a tough position to invest in.
Yes, especially while General Motors and Chrysler are going bankrupt. So
During the recession.
yeah, I mean, I tried to raise outside money, and people were angry that I even asked. Like when I called to try to raise money for Tesla, like we got zero outside money in that December 2008. Because it's like so many companies were going bankrupt that they were like hell no. So we managed to get this like squeak through with a convertible debt round. That basically just matched the money that I put in, which is everything I had, and then I had like zero money, and I didn't even have a house or anything. At the end of 2008, my ex-wife had the house, so I had like basically nothing, and then I actually had to borrow money to pay rent and stuff because like literally had like zero. Zero. So